Hello, thanks very much for joining us here on BBC World News. We start in the United States, where the execution of Lisa Montgomery has been carried out. This just a day after a US judge postponed it, arguing that she was too mentally ill to understand why she was being executed. That decision was overturned by the Supreme Court. Lisa Montgomery was sentenced to death in 2007 for strangling a pregnant woman in Missouri before cutting out and kidnapping her unborn baby. She's the first woman to be put to death since 1953. Her lawyers and supporters had appealed to President Trump for clemency. Our correspondent Nomir Iqbal reports from Indiana, where the execution took place.
On the roadside opposite the prison, many came to have their say. Since last summer, the town of Terre Haute has seen 9 people sent to their death. It's after federal executions were resumed by the government for the first time in nearly 2 decades. And now, Lisa Montgomery, the only woman on federal death row, is the latest. In a statement, her lawyer Kelly Henry said the craven bloodlust of a failed administration was on full display tonight. Everyone who participated in the execution of Lisa Montgomery should feel shame. Our Constitution forbids the execution of a person who is unable to rationally understand her execution. The current administration knows this, and they killed her anyway. Her lawyers and advocates say Montgomery wasn't the worst of society, but the most broken, and that as a mentally ill victim of childhood abuse, she deserved mercy, who should have been kept behind bars for the rest of her life. That's a view shared by people here.
I just don't think that we have any right to kill somebody else. Nobody's saying that they didn't commit these crimes, and most of the people aren't saying that they committed them. I believe in a loving God that it has forgiveness, and I believe that we should not be killing people.
The only people gathered outside the jail are those who believe Lisa Montgomery should not have been put to death and that it wasn't up to the government to decide. But we've seen people driving past shouting abuse at the protesters because many think that capital punishment should exist for a shocking crime like this.
In 2004, Montgomery travelled from her home in Kansas to Missouri to visit Bobbie Jo Stinnett, who was heavily pregnant. She strangled her and kidnapped the baby from her womb. The baby survived. Bobbie Jo Stinnett bled to death. For those close to Mrs. Stinnett, the death of Montgomery is the only justice they want, including the police officer who tracked her down.
This case haunts those of us that worked it. This is a devil come back to earth disguised as Lisa Montgomery.
For those who sat here into the night, they hoped Montgomery's fate would have been decided next week by the new president. Joe Biden has indicated he would abolish the federal death penalty. But time ran out, closing the page on the tortured life and horrific crime of Lisa Montgomery. Nomir Iqbal, BBC News, Indiana.